Want to welcome in Austin Cindric now. You're above the cut line, probably not exactly what you wanted out of Gateway, but you're still in a position to where you can make the round of 12 again. How are you feeling?
Yeah, no, I think as you said it, Gateway, I think definitely had a couple missed opportunities in there for us to get some better points with the car that we had. But otherwise, we're still in a position to control our destiny with 11 points above the cut. So, but Bristol's definitely a treacherous track, and a lot of unpredictable things have happened at that race over the last couple of years. So, not taking anything for granted, we're going to go out and have to have a good day.
Yeah, and you mentioned unpredictable things. It's so easy to get caught up in anything at that track. It just kind of self-washes you down. And then Goodyear's bringing a new right side tire. They're putting PJ1 down. Is this one of the bigger question marks going into a weekend, other than say a super speedway?
Yeah, I think the track prep is kind of what it is. It's very similar to what we've had. It'll be interesting to see kind of the lower series run and pay attention to that. But I wouldn't say that's any different than kind of what Bristol's been for the last handful of years. As far as the tire, yeah, no real laps or any data to go off of for that right side tire. So and obviously the question mark on temperature and tires, and do we have the high tire wear that we had before? I wouldn't even call that high tire wear. These tires coming apart in the cooler temperatures. Does that come up or not? I mean, the temperatures seem warm enough to think that it probably is kind of out of the picture for the race. But Goodyear's definitely trying to make this right side tire wear more than what we did or typically do whenever we kind of get strung out under normal conditions. So should be an interesting weekend, but I think everything's at play and got to be, like I said, got to be able to have a good day.
So with the stage points being a premium for you, being kind of on the bubble, do you risk being a little bit more aggressive in that first stage, not knowing how that wear is going to be? Or do you kind of play it safe to play the long game?
I think there's so many factors that would play into that decision. I mean, you saw in the spring race that guys were pretty cautious for the first 40 laps of the race until they really decided to just trust that the tires were going to stay together. So I think we'll have a much better read of what that's going to look like after practice, but and obviously see what the weather's like as well.
And you've got some of your better tracks coming up. Bristol's always kind of been a thorn in the side over the last 5 races, averaging 22nd. What have you done with your teammates, or what is your prep like differently for this weekend since there's a lot riding on it?
Yeah, I wouldn't say the prep has been any different. I'd say qualifying has definitely been a challenge for us at this track, just kind of that peak pace. But Bristol's a track that I've really loved over the years, and definitely grown a lot, and feel as though I know what to do to be prepared to go run well there. It's just in the Cup Series, we've obviously haven't really hit on it there, but. I feel like it's a place we've been able to have solid days here recently, but nothing overly stand out. But I think we have all the tools of what we need to go out and do and run well and get the points we need.
Sure, we can talk about some more fun stuff too. Winning at Talladega in the spring made your regular season a little bit less stressful. Of course, it all comes down to this weekend, and you've got a good chance there to go on to the round of 12. But this being now your third career playoff appearance, does it feel any different? I know we're only a couple of races into it, but does it feel different than the past?
I'd say this playoffs has definitely been probably the most competitive of years past. Just from the standpoint of how close all the points were leading into the round start, and as the rounds will reset, it'll still be exceptionally close between a lot of cars. So there's kind of been everything to play for here, and this round is typically a don't screw up and you'll be fine. Whereas I feel like we're in a position to where we haven't really kind of thrown any air balls, and we're in a position that we have to actually, go out and, go earn this race, and I'm saying that in a context of, not that that's not what my job is, and I don't think we're capable of that. It's just normally by this race, and if you've done those things that we've done in the last two races, it's kind of a no-brainer that you're in. So I'm more just highlighting how competitive everything is, and with the playoff points that we came into the playoffs with, knowing that each round we're going to have to earn it. We're going to have to really have great days, and I'm fully prepared to do that. It's kind of been the mentality all along. But definitely the most competitive playoffs I've been a part of.
And do you think that just gives you more experience going forward? So if you get over this race and you point your way in or win, of course, does that just give you that extra step that you need to move past the round of 12? Because you get to that point and Talladega's in there.
Yeah, I think. Look, I mean, I guess ask me after it's happened. But otherwise, yeah, we've been super close to making it into the round of eight. The last two times that I've been in the playoffs. So I'd say that's been the more frustrating thing than anything else in years past is just how close we've been to kind of getting a shot or a shot at trying to make the championship four. So yeah, obviously, yeah, that's a huge motivator to move on in each of the rounds, right? You want to be one step closer to trying to race for a championship.
Sure, and you definitely have all the tools to do it, and you've got good equipment, good teammates as well. So, I wish you the best luck there. I want to ask you a fun question as well, because obviously there's the stress of racing and the playoffs, and you have to talk to the media and things like that. But you have something fun planned after the NASCAR Cup season. You get to go race in the Southern Hemisphere. How did that kind of come to be?
Yeah, no, super fun adventure plan for pretty much the whole month of November. I'm going to get to be part of the V Supercar Series. Supercars down in Australia. For NASCAR fans, that's where Shane Van Gisbergen came from, and many other great drivers. Marcus Ambrose. It's a great series. And obviously, Tim Penske had an involvement in the series for a handful of years there with Ford, and just through some of my relationships down there and my connections with Ford, and I've always just wanted to do it and go down there and race. I've raced the Bathurst 12 Hour a couple times, but stepping into V8 Supercars is a big step. I mean, it's a super competitive series. It's just as competitive as a Cup Series in. So thinking I'm going to walk in there and go out and try and win, I think that'd be a hell of a feat. But I'm looking forward to jumping in the deep end on one of the toughest tracks on the schedule with Adelaide. It's cool racetrack, cool event. We got some great history, so it's going to be a really fun adventure. I get down there early November, and I'm not out of there till December, so I might come back with an accent or something. Who knows? But no, it should be a lot of fun, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Just avoid the spiders and snakes and all the things you see about areas down there. So right foot braking, I heard that's a bit of advice to be successful. Is that anything you can even, I guess you have to practice it if it's not natural to you. Is that something you're going to take on?
Yeah, it's many people, including Shane, have voiced that, hey, the Gen 3 supercar is pretty much a necessity. Like anyone who was left foot braking has pretty much transitioned over. It's something. It's a technique that I definitely have. It's not one that I typically use often at all. So it's probably been about 10 years since I've actually been in a competitive race that I've actually right foot brakes. So those will be decisions I'll make in time. But it definitely sounds like that's the path I'm going to need to commit to. And yeah, looking forward to it. I should have some time in the car before the event, so I'm not overly stressed about it. I think there are a number of other things going against me that are going to, make this a challenge. So that can just be another one of them, but should be fun nonetheless.
Hey, just more things to overcome, right? Yeah, that's what
That's right.
challenges are. So, hey, good luck this weekend. It's going to be fun to watch. Weather looks good. Like you said, it looks like around 80 when we're starting out. Looks dry for once. I feel like Bristol always has mist or rain or something. So at least that won't be a factor. You guys can just handle it on the track Saturday night. Good luck.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks, Andrew.
Appreciate Austin Cindric for his time as we look ahead to this weekend's race. It will be a big one from him. And now I want to welcome in Tyler from EchoPark Speedway, who gets to be lucky and go to Bristol this weekend. And I know that this being a cutoff race, it's going to be very exciting.
Oh yeah, cutoff race for the Cup Series and also the companion series with the Xfinity Series and the Food City 300 and the Truck Series on Thursday night. Also in the midst of their playoffs, so a lot to keep track of on the world's fastest half mile this weekend, and a lot at stake for the guys, especially in Cup with that cutoff, like you said. A couple guys that need to win, and a bunch of folks that really need to put forward solid days to make sure they don't fall in danger of getting eliminated in this opening round of the playoffs.
Yeah, 100%. And you and I were chatting earlier, and we were just kind of talking about the bad luck or the misfortune, I guess, for Josh Berry and Alex Bowman. And I don't know if either of those guys can make it out there and put it together and get the win. So it's going to be interesting to see some of the aggression that comes out there to see if they try something crazy pitch strategy wise, what happens.
I mean, the good news for both of them is that they're with organizations that have the ability to come with that kind of speed to contend for a win. The bad news is that they've got three other cars out of those same shops that'll be doing the same. So we've seen Alex Bowman win the pole here in recent years and be pretty stout. But I think his challenge is that, Kyle Larson is, definitely best in the stable at the moment in this car. When it comes to Bristol. And Chase Elliott and William Byron, of course, no slouches themselves. And for Josh Berry, he's a bit of a short track ace, but all of his short track experience that he can lean on, I would say primarily is flatter style tracks, whereas the big banks of Bristol are a bit more unique in that aspect. Not to say that means it won't translate at all, but again, three-time series champion in Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney, who is, very often a contender at this track, but seems to just get snake bit, and then Austin Cindric, who has been putting together some solid performances here lately. If they have that speed, they'll have a lot of competition from their own stable.
Yeah, I agree. And, Penske wants to have all their guys advance. Of course, Josh Berry, kind of the outsider as that satellite team, but I'm sure everybody's going to be putting everything they can into those. And Alex Bowman as well, he's kind of having to win, whereas it's easier for Penske to get everybody in going forward if you just count three cars, because Cindric just needs to have a good finish and hope that nobody else wins, essentially, get some stage points early and have a good back half of the race. So it will be interesting to see what they do there. I am interested to see what the tire that NASCAR brings to Bristol, potentially different compounds, maybe higher wear could lead to some chaos. Although, as you remember, as we've gone into other races, we thought we were going to have crazy fall off and it didn't happen. So there's a huge unknown in that regard.
Yeah, I was dismissing it last week when you brought it up, and then after we got done recording, Jerry Caldwell came out and said, "Hey, yeah, we're gonna have a new tire, right side tire for the night race." So there's a lot of chatter about it potentially delivering some very aggressive wear, and if that's the case, then I like the odds of a Josh Berry a lot more, considering all that Cars Tour experience. Something that is so big in that series is preserving the tires and managing the wear. But that also would shift some of my attention to Denny Hamlin, who, was able to win that high tire wear race that we saw in the spring of last year. And some other veteran drivers, even those that aren't in the playoffs, like a Brad Keselowski. But it's going to be an unknown. I know that, people are going to be starting to try to draw some conclusions after practice and qualifying on Friday, try to get an impression of what's going to happen. But I think the last few goes there have shown that we're not going to know until they start the race, and whatever the conditions are, weather and tire and PJ1 and everything else wise all come together in that specific circumstance, will we know what we have in store. So it'll be an unknown all the way up to and through the green flag on Saturday night.
Yeah, and PJ1 being a traction compound, meant to make Bristol not just a carousel, so they don't just follow each other. But we'll see. I don't know how that then affects a new tire as well. So you've got multiple variables. And yeah, I think it's going to be one of the more unpredictable races. But if the fall off is as expected, then as you suggested, you have to go with somebody like Denny Hamlin, who's on a roll, who's going to really just need to go and try to get a playoff point for the next round. That's all he needs to do. Running 10th doesn't do anything for him. So you have to put him in the front. I'd say 3 to win the race.
Yeah, and especially with how quick Toyota has been the last couple of weeks. Last week when we were looking ahead a little bit to this week, or maybe I was getting ahead of myself looking at this weekend. I was heaping some praise on Kyle Larson and the 5 bunch, and Hendrick definitely showed better at Gateway than a lot of people were probably figuring on based on their recent performance at that track. But definitely, Toyota is at the moment showing a lot more speed across the board, no matter what track you're showing up to. And Bristol's not exactly one of their weak spots. Joe Gibbs Racing in particular used to competing for wins here. Denny Hamlin in particular used to competing for wins here. Chase Briscoe, who was the runner-up at Gateway, had a top 5 here in the spring. I wouldn't be one bit surprised if he's up there in the mix too, with how much raw speed they've had in that 19 car. So I'm not saying that that's, a certainty and that's absolutely how it's going to go, but my goodness, they've got themselves on a roll, like you said, with speed everywhere that they go, and speed solves a lot of problems.
Yeah, it does. So does winning. So I think it's interesting that Denny's hitting it on all cylinders right now, and that's exactly what he needs to do to get himself to try to compete for that first championship for himself in November. A long way to go. The playoff points again. It's hard to say no to him, right? But if you're going to take him out of the equation, who do you even go to? Chris Buescher usually does well at a Bristol track, so. Maybe that's one that RFK has highlighted, and this is one they probably had highlighted at the beginning of the year, saying, "Oh, as long as we get in to the round of 16, just do well at Bristol, then you're on to 12," and they didn't even make it. So maybe this is still a track they prepared for. So you have to hope that they do well for their fans. But man, Brad was just off last week, and it's kind of crazy to see. So a lot of variables. I'm interested in this for multiple reasons. Who gets in and who doesn't for bubble drivers doesn't interest me as much for the next round, because I don't think any of those bubble drivers kind of like 10th down would win the championship. What's more interesting is how the race itself is going to play off. And for me, it being a cutoff race is just a bonus.
Yeah, and you asked the question, hey, if not Denny, who else? I might look at somebody like a Christopher Bell, who I'm not sure if you saw the post-race exchange that he had on the radio, but definitely fired up and doesn't want to settle for a solid point stay. And they're 32 points up on the bubble right now. Obviously, that margin would come down if a new winner from below the cut line happened, but I don't really think that's super likely. So, and even still, then you're talking about 22 points of buffer. I think that they got room to go out there and, not necessarily have to play it safe, but, just go out there and try to have as good a race as they can and try to chase a checkered flag, which would, as we said, solve a lot of problems, but, make that driver happy and get them back into, the form that everybody saw them in back in March when they reeled off 3 in a row. Yeah. Won the All-Star race in between, but hasn't seen victory lane in a points race in 6-7 months at this point. It's about time to start putting those wins together to ensure advancement through these playoffs and get another Final Four berth like Christopher Bell has done so many times already in his young career. So, yeah, I'd be watching them.
You definitely have to. And then one of his better tracks is coming up next week in New Hampshire. And you and I kind of chatted ahead of Gateway that Hendrick had struggled at those type of tracks. And then they showed speed then at Gateway, a flatter track where you got to carry speed through the middle and get that speed down the straightaway. So did they find something that then could make them play spoiler to an extent next week in New Hampshire? So maybe Bell's not quite as comfortable as he thinks he is, especially with that frustration. That doesn't come out because you had a bad day. That comes out because of weeks of compounding interest, I guess. So I think you're right to say that he's going to be up there. And we've only not talked about one of the Gibbs driver, which is Ty Gibbs, and he actually does pretty well at this track as well. So for him being young in his career and being the driver that started the most with JGR without getting a win, he would love to quiet people down as well.
Yeah, and he's not had the season that people hoped for or expected of him, obviously. But we've seen throughout his few years in the Cup Series, any given weekend, which makes sense given the team that he's on. He's liable to show up with top 5 speed, and Bristol being one of his stronger tracks. We think back to that high tire wear race in the spring of 2024. He was up there leading heaps of laps and in the mix before he kind of got derailed by a little bit of a tire problem himself. But this is a place where, whether there's a tire wear or not, you could see him being in the mix for sure. And, he's got a lot of competition from within his organization, of course, with all the talent that's there. But, there's the possibility of a Ty Gibbs playing spoiler and getting, an opportunity to win his first career race without playoff stakes, of course, but nonetheless, any driver wants to win any opportunity they get, especially a young one that's looking for their first.
Right. And I think that a lot of people have to take into consideration other drivers that we haven't talked about as much. Chase Elliott has run well here. Joey, as you mentioned, and then going back to Josh Berry, we've seen that 21 almost play spoiler at a Bristol race before. Desperation mode, good tire saving. I'd give him a top 10 chance to win. I don't know. Put him in the top 10 of favorites for the week, which a lot of people might not expect. So I think that's going to be really fun to see unfold. And you get to go up there. As you mentioned, there's other action going on this weekend at the track as well. So what all do you get to do this weekend?
Well, it sounds like I'm gonna have the really hard duty, at least to start on Thursday night. I'm gonna be overseeing the press box, so I'm gonna have the chore of hanging out with the folks that are covering the race from up top, overlooking the racetrack and having a nice view of it from turn 3 there. So I'm going to have a nice vantage point to watch it all unfold, at least on Thursday night. We'll see if they shift my responsibilities throughout the weekend, but it sounds like they've given me a bit of an easy task, and I'm not going to complain about it because there's really not a bad place to experience a race at Bristol Motor Speedway with how tight the confines of that track are, and where any seat basically puts you on top of the action. But the press box is definitely a nice vantage point.
Yeah, I think so. And that's going to be fun to watch as well. See how the track wears in. High temperatures only near 80 as we transition into the evening. Of course, going to get cool quicker as well. So a lot of this race will be in the 70s. I don't know how that plays into activating the PJ1 and things like that. And it's just going to be really interesting. I don't know if maybe these teams are going to set their cars up conservatively so they're not, sliding around the tires as much. And there's just so many unknowns. I think you're going to be seeing some big swings from that initial practice session and qualifying to what actually happens. I think there will be some surprises. That being said, going back, I want to say the last 4 or 5 races, drivers qualifying in the top 5 and 1. So I think you have the veteran who will unload with speed and be dominant, but I think you're going to have some people that maybe qualify a little bit further back that will have that opportunity to make some passes as well. That could be a contender. I don't think it's just going to be the top 5 stays the top 5, and with the car not being able to pass as well as some fans would hope would be maybe what you expect. I don't expect that for this race.
I would say so. They're planning, according to Bob Pockris on Twitter, and there's no better source. They're planning to apply the PJ1 each day before each of the races. So you should have fresh PJ1 unless they call an audible or deviate from that plan. So for the Truck Series, I would see them staying on the bottom like they have in years past through much of the night. In the Xfinity Series, I think they start to expand the groove up, halfway, 2/3 of the way through the race. In the Cup Series, I think by the time you get to halfway, you're starting to see people run the top a lot more. But to your point of, hey, starting up front versus, being able to charge up through, I think in that first half of the race, if you truly have the speed and you've started up front, your task is to make sure that you keep that track position. And if you have that speed, but you didn't have the best qualifying run, well, that's your opportunity to gobble up all those spots, because as the night goes on, it's going to get harder and harder to do that as the groove continues to move up and passes become more difficult to complete, especially as people dial in their cars throughout the evening and everybody gets a little bit better.
And then there's the chance that you get into that last stage where you typically have a longer run to start the final stage, and green flag pit stops happen when cars are handling at their worst. And then that's when you can get an ill-timed caution and just change everything up that we just talked about, because you're going probably 2 laps down, at least at Bristol, as we know. So it'll be fun. Lots to soak in. I'm glad you get to go and see it in person, and kind of makes you re-fall in love with the sport a little bit every time you get to go see those trucks or cars go around the track.
Never a bad day at the racetrack, right?
That's what we like to hear. Tyler, hey, I appreciate it so much. I guess we officially didn't make a pick. Do you want to make a pick?
I'm gonna. So all of the backpedaling and talking about Toyota that I did, kind Kyle Larson has not won since May. Kyle Larson is really fast, can ride the edge as well as or better than anybody driver. And that seems to be what Bristol, in all but one race in this car, has rewarded. And that one race being the high tire wear race. So if the right side tire yields what, is being speculated, then this may not age terribly well. But I'm going to go with Kyle Larson. And hey, I'll even hedge and say, even in a high tire wear race, we saw him in the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro before they repaved, stomp the field. So it's not like he can't conserve tires, but I like him as best when it's make lap time and make it over and over again.
I like that. I like that a lot. There are only 3 drivers out of the last handful of races at Bristol that have all gotten top 10s. One has gotten all top 5s. You picked Larson, so that means I have to go with one of the others. I feel like I've picked Bell a lot recently, but because he's fired up, because now New Hampshire might not be their huge point race that they think next weekend, let's duke it out. Let's go Bell versus Larson, and then probably have Denny spoil it.
There you go. I mean, Denny's the other favorite that, if there was a third person on this show, they would be obligated to pick Denny, but with how good he's been at Bristol and how good he is right now. The other thing I'd look at, we started off at the top of the show with you talking the Austin Cindric.
Sure.
He is the driver on the bubble. On the outside looking in is Austin Dillon. He's the closest, 11 points out. Shane Van Gisbergen, 15 points out. Then Alex Bowman and Josh Berry are really the ones in the probably need to win if they're going to find their way into the round of 12 at 35 and 45 points back. Do you think any of those drivers below the cut line bump their way in? And if so, who do they bump out?
Man, I mean, you have to go Cindric, not necessarily because of his position in the points, but he just has an average finish of about 22nd. You're not gaining playoff points for the most part, finishing 22nd or just say running 22nd. I don't have his average running order in these last races, but just talking about finishes. Despite his teammates being pretty good at this track, I don't know. I think that it would be really nice. You want to cheer for everybody, but some people have to get knocked out as well. If there were to be somebody knocked out, say one of these other guys comes in there and RCR brings a fast 3 car and they gain some stage points, I think that would be the only case that really happens.
Yeah, I if anybody's going to bump their way in, I agree that it would be Austin Dillon, only needing to make up as few as 11, depending on who he's able to overtake. As far as who he could overtake, I don't know that if everybody runs the race and, finishes it without, having some sort of problem happen, get taken out on a restart or, a devastating pit road penalty or anything like that, that the 3 cars able to advance unless they show up with top 10 speed throughout the whole entire night. But I could see one of these guys, Joey Logano, I think, is just on the edge of, hey, if you get caught in a wreck, the 21-point buffer may not be quite enough by the time the checkered flag falls. Ross Chastain at 19 points and Austin Cindric at 11 points. If one of them was to get bumped, I think I'd pick Ross just because this past weekend was kind of the exception for them as far as qualifying well and, starting the race with good track position. I could see them easily reverting to the norm and finding themselves in the mess. And at Bristol, it's very easy to find trouble that's not of your own doing, especially if you're having to race mid-pack and claw your way through the field. So anything can happen. We'll see what actually does happen on Saturday night. But if I were to have to hazard a guess, that's what I would guess. If not just status quo and
sure,
the way it is stays the same.
Yeah, and Ross, last 5 races, average starting position of 23rd. That's right in the bee's nest there. Now, I don't have the other guys pulled up like right in front of me, but it is interesting. Josh Berry's average start is actually 12th to 13th, so that kind of keeps him out of a little bit of the commotion. So maybe there's something there.
That's something that's been Cindric's strength this year, or at least among his strengths, is that they've had very good Friday and Saturdays at the racetrack, and usually put themselves in a pretty good spot to start the race out.
I agree. So it'll be fun to watch. I think Cindric will make it in, but the wrecks there can collect, a third of the field and a blink of an eye. So you never quite know for sure. Hey, have a safe trip. Have the most fun, and we'll debrief next week about it. Tyler, thanks so much for being on this week's edition of the Inside Lane, and we'll chat with you guys again soon.